Hello and welcome back to One Trek Mind with me, Raptor.
And me, Michael.
And today we're reviewing the next episode of Strange New Worlds Season 3. So, Michael, over to you to summarize the episode.
Well, we begin with this sort of Star Trek parody scene. We've seen this done in a lot of other shows and media at this point. This might be the first time Star Trek itself has decided to do a parody on itself, actually kind of be in on the joke, which was entertaining. The details don't really matter, but this evil species, the Agonians, want to steal the humans' brain cells or some stupid shit. It was entertaining.
It was very original series.
Yes. But once this scene is done, where we introduce the Kirk-like character and two others played by, Nurse Chapel and Ortegas, I'm not sure what their equivalent would be. I suppose Nurse Chapel's character is basically the original Una, because there's even a point in the episode where they said, a woman can't be number one. But anyways. We then go into the intro for this episode, which, like the Lower Decks crossover, has been stylized to this sort of retro original series kind of look. But we then begin the episode proper with La'an, who's putting in her log. We know that Enterprise is approaching a neutron star, kind of just exploring, checking things out, while they ask La'an to do this sort of challenge with the new holodeck technology that's come up. And they do kind of skirt around the canon issue of the holodeck in this scene with Pike, Una,
I think we can discuss.
La'an. Yeah, we'll get into that. La'an then goes to do some more dance training with Spock, and they very nearly kiss before La'an realizes she wants to do this Amelia detective kind of thing for her holodeck simulation, which is I feel very Dixon Hill inspired. We then have a quick little scene with Scotty where it's revealed that they'll need to use the pattern buffers for the holodeck, so it's just kind of their cheeky in-universe way of explaining how they get to have all the main cast play these fun different roles for the episode.
They need to use the last biological signatures from the transporter to create the characters for the holodeck, because they haven't got any in the database essentially.
But then we jump straight into the murder mystery, where we find out that I actually don't know if he was a writer or a producer. I think he was a producer.
Yes, I think he was supposed to be a producer.
Yeah, but he has been murdered by someone in the crew or the cast at this little shindig. We then get an extremely meta scene, first of many very meta scenes in this episode, where we get the reason for the murder. The show is being canceled prematurely, it stings a little extra hard considering this show just had its announcement that it was getting canceled. But the producer was murdered for wanting to cancel the show, so we're trying to figure out, who done it. It's just a classic setup here. La'an almost immediately pegs that Una's character is the murderer, but upon confronting her with this information, she immediately dies from poison as the holodeck realizes that La'an is going to figure this out too quickly, so it has to adapt and come up with this new plan, try to trick her, which felt again very much like a callback to the Data holodeck episode with
Moriarty.
Because it was literally same idea. The computer's all right, so how do I best this human mind? So it just takes things up a notch. La'an realizes she's gonna have a lot of trouble with this, so she ends up calling in help from Spock. And at the same time, we're learning that the Enterprise is experiencing power issues while they're near this neutron star, thanks to how much energy the holodeck is taking up. But Scotty continuously, throughout the episode, refuses help at every turn. We then get a nice montage of all of the characters in the holodeck being questioned by La'an to find out, where the lead is going to take them. But they're kind of just going in circles. They're not really making any ground. And as they do start to at least move towards some kind of answer, a chandelier nearly falls right on top of La'an, and a shard of it cuts her on the cheek, and it's realized that the program is malfunctioning, the safety protocols have been turned off, the arch won't form. Classic holodeck malfunctioning stuff right here.
Yeah, classic TNG malfunctioning, which I have thoughts about going to that after.
At this point, Scotty goes to Uhura and very, what would even be the word for it? Very unsuccessfully tries to not implicate himself, but get her help, and she very quickly figures out that his hypotheticals are not so hypothetical. But she does agree to help him on, in secret, so that the captain and everyone doesn't start freaking out. And then we go into a scene which had to have had the most meta references I have ever seen in anything Star Trek before, where they're calling out things like Nurse Chapel's character
being liked.
Yeah, not being well liked, getting less and less lines and a shorter skirt, and it felt very, very much like commentary on what happened with
the actual
Dr. Crusher. And see, I felt like it was more a commentary on Dr. Crusher and why am I blanking on names right now?
Deanna Troi.
Yes, thank you. Jesus, with Troy. The short skirts line reminded me of Deanna Troi. The less and less lines sort of being pushed out of the show reminded me of Dr. Crusher. But there's tons of other things in here where they're making fun of William Shatner's acting and being a womanizer and throwing shade at the studios for, all the various productions of Star Trek. It just keeps going and going and going until La'an is like, okay, that's enough. And at this point, we do find that Ortegas's character, Lee Pace, I can't remember the character's name super well, but we see that she has been found dead next to Joni. I do remember Joni. That's Uhura's character's name. But it's pretty quickly revealed that Joni is not the killer here, and she actually gives probably my favorite scene in the episode, this really great speech about the value of Star Trek, essentially. She's talking about the fictional show in the hologram, but again, it's very meta and obvious. She's directly speaking about Star Trek and what it means to people, and I thought it was actually a very beautiful little moment. We then get this kind of tense scene where there's a bunch of, I believe it's gamma radiation that gets launched out of the neutron star, so Scotty needs to get them more power so they can shield the ship or at least move out of the way, but the holodeck is taking so much energy that they can't do that, so in the nick of time he gives them just enough power to dodge out of the way. But it felt like a very classic Scotty moment to me, where it's just do or die, man. This is it.
It did remind me of an actual TOS episode where he, in the nick of time, gets the ship's warp drive back online after it goes offline and they end up almost dying.
The usual. Uhura finds a way to reach La'an in the holodeck, essentially convince the holodeck that you are yourself a hologram was the answer. Not exactly sure how he managed to pull that off or do that, but we can get into that in a second. But Scotty does get his message through to La'an, and she, I feel like, learns exactly what she already knew, which is I need to complete the mystery. I'm like, you seem to have figured that out on your own already, but I digress. At this point, we get Captain Pike's character, who I thought was pretty obviously a Roddenberry.
I think he's definitely supposed to be Roddenberry. The way that he quickly loses his temper on the set in that one scene, and I also think the Western comments made, because he was a big Westerns person. Also, the wanting to make films, not TV shows, is, I think, also a Roddenberry thing. So it's quite clear that they're, I wouldn't say taking shots, but definitely... I
think they took a few shots, personally. But it's this moment where this Roddenberry character accuses La'an of being the murderer and ends up shooting Spock in this just kind of tense, mistaken moment that happens. I'll jump into that scene later, but I found it to be a little awkward personally. But this is the moment where Lon realizes that Spock is the murderer, the one that she's after, and is in fact just a hologram, was never even there to begin with. So she succeeds in solving the mystery. She's able to exit the holodeck, and then we kind of wrap things up. Una has this nice moment where she tells Scotty that he needs to lean on others for help, and he expresses his discomfort in doing so ever since his run-in with the Gorn, how he kind of blames himself for what happened to his crew, which was probably my second favorite moment in the episode, was that scene between Una and Scotty. And then we finish the episode off with La'an going to the real Spock for another dance lesson, just kind of discussing the events of the episode and how she knew it wasn't really him in there because he just seemed so cold and he doesn't seem that way around her, which then leads up to them finally kissing and I'm assuming beginning a relationship, which is where we end the episode.
Let's start with the holodeck, shall we?
Yes. I'll say right off the bat, didn't bother me. I think the explanation they gave for this being like a prototype thing, specifically even have a little reference to the rec room with him calling it a recreation room and everything. I felt like they skirted around that problem fairly well. Like, it's obvious it's breaking canon, but they said, let's finesse this a little bit so that we can do our holodeck episode anyways.
It's okay to say that it's a prototype. They made it clear that it's in a testing phase. I like the fact that at the end of the episode they even reference the fact that if it's ever used again in the future, that it needs to have its own power source and its own servers, which is what happens to the holodecks by the time of TNG and Voyager and DS9. I liked the little explanations. The only element of it I didn't like was the fact that it looks identical to TNG's holodeck inside. It doesn't look like a prototype, it looks like TNG's. Now, I get that's deliberately done to reference it, but I'm like, so you're saying in 200 years, they still look the same? Like, you couldn't have made it look a bit more...
Yeah, my big disbelief for that is that it took 200 years to perfect this. I'm like, it seemed like it was pretty much
good.
there.
Yeah.
It malfunctioned just as much as it ever did in the future. So.
Well, then that's the other thing. Like, they do this, they discover the malfunction, they give the suggestion, and it malfunctions in exactly the same way as it does in 200 years' time. Oh no,
many
times. We can't get out. The safety protocols have failed. Oh no. I think it would have been better written if the episode had been the establishment of why things like safety protocols and stuff existed. If this is prototype technology, it would have been, I think, a better idea for them to go in not realizing they could be hurt, and for them to suddenly realize, oh shit, we actually can be hurt in this fake, recreated place, and that being the reason why the safety protocol and safety systems are eventually invented.
Yeah, I think that would have been a good choice.
Because, yeah, like you say, at the moment, this prototype holodeck seems to be just exactly the same as the other one, only it just breaks the ship a bit more than it ever used to in the legacy
It just takes
shows.
too much power. But like I said, overall, I don't have an issue with them doing a holodeck episode here. I think they did it rather well.
It was definitely a homage to TNG holodeck episodes, especially Dixon Hill, like you said. In that regards, again, I know it's referencing it, but could they not have gone with something a little bit more imaginative than let's just do a detective again?
Yeah, I mean, that was my issue with it, even when I saw the trailer and knew that they were going to have like a Dixon Hill at least reference in this season. Because, like, believe me, I love a good whodunit. Like, a murder mystery is great, and it was no exception here. I had a good time.
Twisting it into the parody TOS, original series sort of thing was a good idea. I liked that bit especially.
Yeah, it was fun. But I do agree, it would have been nice to do something a little different with the holodeck, because we have seen this before many, many, many times in Legacy Trek, where the holodeck is their excuse to do like a period piece. So it would have been nice for them to have at least picked a different period to do a piece on in this episode. And being perfectly honest, I know they kind of gave an explanation as to why La'an likes murder mysteries, and she even says, they had a profound impact on me and everything. I don't really buy that. She doesn't seem like a character who would really give a shit about something like this, in my opinion. Like, I guess you can make the argument, oh, well, she works security, so makes sense for her to want to know how to investigate a crime. But that's really the only connection I can find. Personality-wise, she does not seem like the kind of person who would enjoy this. So it did take me a minute to kind of roll with it, because it just felt strange to me. But again, once it got rolling, I had a good time with it. It was very fun.
It's definitely a fun episode.
It's nice to hear her use an American accent for a little while, like that Americano kind of accent. It was very fun.
There are many references, and obviously essentially telling the story of what happened to the original series in its own way. It was a nice reference to have. But I think we should get to something we're probably both going to agree with, and that is this establishment of a Spock-La'an romance.
Yeah, not a fan.
The establishment of La'an and Kirk's romance, which I thought was what they were going for in Season 2 and I assumed was going to become a thing here, seems to have disappeared, and now we're going yet another female member of the crew or cast has the hots for Spock. Why? Why do we have to have another relationship between Spock and another member of the crew? Like, we've just had all this with Nurse Chapel. Do we have to have it all yet again? Like, what's the point?
Yeah, especially because given that this is a prequel and we know that it's not going to go anywhere with La'an eventually, this is just a temporary relationship that they're kind of throwing together here for the show's sake. And I don't know, I just find it boring because it's like you said, we just did like 2 full seasons of his romance with Chapel, and we get a decent amount of romance like thrown in with other characters on this show as well. I feel like I'm kind of drowning in the relationships right now. I really didn't need or want these two to become romantic. Again, we discussed this in, I think, the last episode. We're like, I hope that's not where they're going with these characters. And here we are, that's where they were going with these characters. And it just feels cliche and boring, and I'm super nervous they're going to do to La'an what they did with Chapel, which was for 2 seasons, have her storylines just revolve around relationships with Spock, when La'an, out of a lot of the characters, has one of the most interesting like backstories and personalities. So yeah, I'm hoping this is a very short-lived kind of thing, but I mean, we'll see what they do with it. Maybe they can convince me. Kind of doubt it, but...
Yeah, I kind of doubt that myself. Which I suppose brings me on to the question of modern Trek does seem to perhaps a lot... Well, I don't know if it's fair to say perhaps a lot more than Legacy Trek ever did, but hooking up characters in current modern Trek seems to be something that they always try and do. Almost to the point where it starts feeling a bit forced.
I mean, I wouldn't say any more so than the original Legacy series did, but I don't know. I personally was hoping we'd kind of move past that kind of storytelling in Star Trek, because it just feels dated the way that it... Like, the constant pairing up of characters feels like a very dated way to make something interesting happen between 2 characters. So yeah, I'm just not a fan.
But yeah, apart from that, the episode was fine. It was fun. It was refreshing from all the heavy stuff we had the last episode again. I guess I kind of just feel that this episode was a bit inconsequential.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a filler episode, but that's
it's a good filler episode.
I've enjoyed with Strange New Worlds is the bringing of filler episodes back. Just, a little adventure a week. Doesn't always have to tie into the main story or anything. Occasionally we can just take a nice little break and, do something different. But I mean, that is my biggest issue with this episode, is I feel like we're not doing enough different here. Like, we've done the murder mystery before. We've done the investigator period piece before.
Trapped
we've done
on the holodeck
malfunction before. So, again, while I liked it, it's definitely lacking some oomph because it's not unique enough. It does make me worried as well, because they basically confirmed that this is our gimmick episode of the season. Every season gets its like big gimmick episode. And I've been mostly fine with that, because what they've delivered thus far, I found to be good. Like, I enjoyed the fantasy setting during the Mbanga episode of the first season. That was fun. I enjoyed the musical episode in the second season. I thought that was really fun. And I enjoyed this murder mystery here. Probably less so than the former two, but I enjoyed it. However, the sneak peek that they just announced a couple days ago of the gimmick episode of season 4, I
haven't seen
really
that.
don't know. I really don't know how I feel.
Oh,
about
hang on.
it.
Is this puppet thing?
Yes, they're doing a puppet episode. To me, that might be just going too far with the gimmick. I'm like, okay, I don't want this to get too silly. Like, I am not Patrick Stewart. We are here to have fun, but I think within a reasonable amount. Puppet Star Trek, I think that's too much. Maybe they can, like the musical episode, convince me, because I wasn't convinced on the musical episode either. I don't like musicals.
No, I
very
wasn't
much.
Initially either, but it definitely won me over.
So I'm hoping they can do the same with the puppet episode. But that was kind of a bit of a side tangent. I just remembered it because, again, this is the big gimmick episode of this season, and that's going to be the big gimmick episode of next season, and, I'm concerned. Please let us know what you thought of the episode down below. Again, did you think it was a fun little adventure to go on? Did you find the gimmick to not work? Did you have issues that we didn't even bring up in this video? Again, leave us your thoughts down below, and leave us a like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. It really helps us out. But other than that, that is going to be it from me.
And it's goodbye from me.